For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise. And you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Well, Heidi-ho, listenerinos, Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. Oh, we're off to a great start already. You know, it's is it spring break for you or wherever you are? I'm so out of touch. This is where I feel like such an old person because I've said to many people, I enjoy going to the mall or just going out, you know, public places in the afternoon. So like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon because kids are in school, people are at work, and there's just fewer annoying people where I go. And so if it's spring break where you are, first of all, I hope that you're on a beach, you know, clutching your phone because that's exactly how you enjoy nature. Sorry, let me get sidetracked here. I laugh at the people who do that, by the way. When I scroll through Instagram, the very few minutes I'm on the app in a day, I'm always amazed at how many people, they could be on the nicest beach ever or standing in the water and clutching their phone. That's fine. I get it. Somebody else is taking a picture of you, though. So you put down your phone, let them get the shot. They'll text it to you. They can send it to you right away, right? Because that's always what happens. As soon as somebody gets a picture of you, you know what you say, right? Oh, send that to me. Send that to me. Send that to me. Ah. And so I sit there and go, wow, you're on the beach in Mexico. Or when you have the group shots of everybody in a row, you know, the couple or the three people or the group of friends on the loungers on the beach, and you know it's a group shot, so the person on the end is holding out the phone, and like the three others are again just heads down on the phone, or they're looking for a brief second. They had to take their attention away from the phone, and so they look to get the picture taken. And I just go, wow, you're with a group of friends. You're with a group of friends. I understand if you're, you know, it's a work trip and you're traveling by yourself and you're glued to your phone, or, you know, you're there with your partner and you can't stand your partner, but even still, why are you vacationing together? If that's what you're doing on vacation, is looking at your phone. So that's going to segue into what we're talking about today, relationships. But just let me go back to that spring break thing for a second here, is that I didn't even know that it was spring break. So I'm going through the mall. I had to cut through there to get to where I was going. I know people are like, oh, a mall? Who goes to a mall these days? He said, well, see, that's the thing. It's a barrier in between where I'm coming from and where I'm going. So I have to. I can't go around it. You got to go through it. And I was just like, where are all these kids? What's going on here? All these people, this riffraff, get me out of here. And then I was talking to my cousin later, and she's got 2 kids, and she said, no, it's spring break. And I said, okay, so for the next week, because spring break, I believe, is a week, I'm not going in public. I'm just going to hide out in my big house and not go anywhere. So, all right. Now, let's shift gears then to talk about what the actual subject is this week on the show is relationships. Now, I've long said that reality shows have kind of killed the whole, I was going to say the sanctity of a relationship. That's too whimsical. But it's really just ruined sort of how a relationship works, or people's views of how a relationship works. I laugh when I watch The Bachelor and Bachelorette, and you have these people who go and say, you know, that their grandparents inspired them. You know, my grandparents or my parents, they grew up in a completely different time when you weren't clutching your phone on the beach and ignoring your partner. So you might want what they've had. If that's the case, and you're wanting to attain that, if that's what you're wanting to achieve in life, I would say ditch the phone then. Ditch the phone. Ditch the phone. There you go. That's how it is. Anyway, we're going to talk about relationships on the show, and it starts on the Scribble right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
JB here on The Scribble. So in a world of reality dating shows, dating apps, really not meeting people sort of in a natural way, can you really blame relationships for failing? I don't know. Can you blame? It's not a thing that really does something, but you get what I'm saying. Is I met my husband through. I was hosting a radio show, and this was not just a. Neither of us was sort of on the prowl. Was on on a search to find love. And trust me, in my how old was I? Mid-20s, yeah, early to mid-20s. I was definitely I'll use the word desperate, clingy, obsessive when it came to just trying to find a relationship, right? It was a search. I'm trying to find it. And I never really understood at that time that's kind of not the way to go about living, because you're just making this entire thing about a search. And so once I finally chilled out, I was focused on my career. I was, an aspiring journalist and broadcaster, focused on that hard when I was 20, I was 25 and about my house. So I started on the radio, I guess, 23 years old. And that was really what was a good distraction for me, because it wasn't every evening me sitting at home. Now, remember, like I said, we're going back 20 years now. Apps and all that stuff wasn't a thing. But we had the gay.com chat room, which was kind of my go-to all day and night, just trying to, and in the city that I was growing up, you didn't have a very big pool of people to meet or choose from. The weekends you would go to the bar, and it was a little bit more interactive, obviously, because you're face to face with people. And so that's what the dating scene was like. If you were, desperately single, you would go out to like social clubs, right? The hangouts. And now, the reason why this came up is because one of my colleagues, she's older. I don't know if I can. She's older, and she's been single for a long time, and she constantly gives me updates about her dating, relationship, whatever, her dating life, I guess you'd call it. And to me, I mean, I'm getting these through messages on social media. We don't have like phone conversations. She's, like I said, she's a colleague. She's not a friend, and we've known each other for, I would say, maybe close to 10 years. And so I've never known her to be in a really, really long-term relationship. I know she's been in relationships that I have felt, just based on the information that she tells me, that maybe have gone a little bit too quickly, or she's sort of, jumped into things. Inevitably, they don't work out. And they, the next update I get weeks later or days later is that the guy is gone. So she's on dating apps, and she's told me just about a week or so ago that she's got 3 guys on the go. And I said, oh, okay, that's cool. And so she starts asking me questions about, sort of, I guess, wanting suggestions. Now, here's the thing. I understand how straight guys work. So, I mean, sure, but I'm not one, so I can't really tell you. And especially at your age, she's in her 60s, I don't know what a guy in his 60s is, a straight guy in his 60s is after, what he's looking for. I mean, I can sort of guess, but, who am I to suggest or recommend anything? And so I finally kind of ended that conversation by telling her, what works in some people's relationships doesn't work for everybody, and it won't, and that's okay. So going back to that, like I said about people on The Bachelor who are inspired by their grandparents, whatever. Yeah, my grandparents were married. It would have been 70 years. My grandpa died, though, and that all of us in the family looked at that relationship and said, "Wow, that's love. That's a couple who would still hold hands walking down the street, would still at the kitchen table when family was over. My grandpa had his chair at the table, and my grandma would like sit on his lap, and it would just be the family, family night of chatting, conversation, playing Scrabble, whatever, and." that was just, they had things in their relationship that it was done a certain way. And I know I talked with a feminist friend many years ago, and I explained this to her about how my grandparents' relationship worked. And she said that was so degrading for my grandma. And what was happening in their relationship was that my grandpa he had certain roles, my grandma had certain roles. You have to remember, again, we're going back to like, the 1940s and 50s, so different time. And, he would do all of this is where it's cliche and stereotypical and a generalization, but he would do the man job. So he would cut the grass, but she would be outside moving the lawn ornaments. So he would go into the garage, get the lawnmower. She would start to do her thing of moving things around. He would go and cut that row of grass, and then she would go and move the things over. Ditto in the kitchen, where she would cook every meal. She cooked everything. He never let her wash the dishes, though. That was his job, was that he would physically move her, grab her like by the shoulders, and sit her down if she started to wash the dishes during a family get-together. And so that's something that works for them. Who are we to say anything? Who are we? Like, really, that's not up to anybody. I defy you, who has not been married for 60 years, to say, that's wrong, that's gross. I think it was, I don't remember, was it 67 or 68 years? I'd have to text family, but it was close. They were approaching 70 years of marriage. And so I when my friend, was offended by that, saying, that's so degrading for my grandma, she didn't have a problem with it. And that's how it worked for them. They got together when my grandma was 15, he was 16. She was leaving the city. She was taking the train to go and see this boy. That's how much, she liked him and how things, and so, you kind of look at that sort of a love story and go, okay, so you, who's like swiping and giving somebody all of 1 second of your attention before you look at one picture and judge them and say, no, not for me, this was a relationship built on substance, and look what happened. I mean, it sucks that cancer took him, but I mean, And so, yes, when he died, my grandma was lost because she had never paid the bills. She had never done the banking. She had never done anything like that. So she did have some learning to do. My uncle was able to kind of step in and help her with the banking and doing things like that. And sure, maybe I could agree and say that's maybe the problem of having those designated roles in a relationship, right? Well, what happens if something happens to him? Now she's screwed. She doesn't know how to pay the bills. Well, okay, well, she's got family that can help her out, but certainly, so that's where this woman, as I'm going back to the dating app thing, has, 3 guys on the go. That's fine. That's not anything that I would ever do, because I'm sort of demanding where it's like, I want all of your attention. I don't know. I've never been on a dating app, but I wouldn't have the patience for that. I would need to know that I'm the only one getting your attention. I'd be like, yeah, focus on me. I'm not sharing your attention with other people. This is not a People's Choice thing, awards. This is like, no, it's you and me. If we're focused on this, we're seeing if this works, great. And so I don't know. I would probably burn every chance at a relationship in a dating app. I just don't have that patience. And I think, too, that I'm a talker, so I need to, let's get on the phone, let's have a conversation, or let's just meet, let's get together. I have no interest in messaging back and forth for, weeks on end, or, asking a question and then waiting 7 hours to get a response, and that's not interactive enough for me. Sorry. But I'm in my 40s, and that's a different generation than somebody who is in their 60s, right? This whole technology thing is very exciting for her. For me, I'd be like, yeah, no thanks. No. But I can understand her appreciation for this opening up the dating pool for her. Because if she doesn't know, where does somebody in their 60s go to hang out? You're not going to go to maybe there's singles clubs or, bars or something like that on your own. But, maybe that is the easiest way. So again, I'm not here to go and say, well, that's don't do that, or that's a weird way to do it. That's up to you. She's a grown up, right? It's not like she's 7 years old asking me for, like, how do you know if a boy likes you? But I'm very quick to not give advice when people ask me about things like that. And I think because if you're in a relationship or you're in a marriage for so many years, people think that you have these like words of wisdom. And I could go and I'll flip that around and say, my husband is not like the person that you're with. So our relationship is, works a certain way because of our personalities and who we are. So you can't ask me about, well, if you have a disagreement, handling my husband, who was from another country, who didn't really, he knew English when we got together, but we had to come up with a different way to communicate. So the way that we will communicate our feelings or frustrations or or, annoyances or whatever it is going to be something completely different than a woman who's, an American woman who's middle-aged, past middle-aged at this point, and, communicating with guys on technology, and, so her expectations are going to be totally different. So that's, it's up to you to figure out, if it's your demographic, if it's your your orientation, whatever your demographic is. I mean, you need to figure out how to communicate to it. Not, maybe you can research that on the internet, but I certainly wasn't Googling, how do I communicate with somebody in Brazil who doesn't understand our customs and relationship and, traditions and whatever. We figured it out and we made it work. Because it was communication. When we didn't communicate, that's when we had the blowouts and the breakdowns. But after all this time, we're fine. So when we come back, we're going to take a break. I'm going to tell you about when people ask me this one relationship question that I don't really understand because I'm not sure if it's meant to be humorous or a setup. I'll tell you about that coming up in just a bit.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
JB here on The Scribble, talking relationships today. One of the questions that I get asked a lot in my relationship, and I've seen this also too on dating game shows, like Newlywed Game, things like that. So I don't know if it's meant to be humorous or if it's meant to be a setup to to try to cause conflict or something. And I believe this is why I get asked the question, is because people have seen it on those kinds of shows, and then they think that it's a legitimate question to ask in a relationship, is what annoys you most about your partner? Okay, so here's the thing. Yes, it's meant to elicit an embarrassing response, right? So let's say that he, I was going to say leaves his socks on the floor. That's not embarrassing. Let's say that he, I knew I was going to tell this story, and I should have had an example prepared. Okay, so something that my husband did early on in the relationship when he came to Canada, and when we first started visiting and then ultimately living together, was that he would leave the cupboard doors open in the kitchen. And think about that for a second, right? When you visit somebody, when you're, at a get-together, are the kitchen cupboards just randomly open? No, that's why they have doors. You close them to. So that was something that he just did. Now, I didn't know at the time if this was just an oversight or if this is, maybe you don't have cupboard doors in Brazil. Is that what this is? And you forgot to do it. So that was, and like I said, we're going back 8 or 9 years. This is not an issue now. But I first jokingly said to him, I laughed and I was like, close the door. Meanwhile, it really did bother me. And it's not even about being like OCD-ish or obsessive. It's just kind of like, well, in North America, that's why, we don't want, dust or whatever. That's why there's doors on these things, to keep the plates and glasses or whatever clean. That's the purpose of a cupboard door. So I laughed, and, I didn't want to come out and be an asshole about it, right? Close the door when you're done in there. Well, that's just rude. So I laughed about it. I said, close the door. And then he would do it again and do it again, do it again. So eventually, at some point, if you have good communication in your relationship, you express that to your partner. Hey, look, you know what? It bothers me when you're leaving the cupboard doors open. Can you close them? And your case stands a better chance of surviving if you explain why you want it closed. I don't want the dust or, dog fur, whatever. Not that we don't have fur flying around our house, but you know what I'm saying is that the purpose of the doors is to keep that stuff clean. So, and at that point, that's up to your partner to choose to either respect your feelings and, how you want things to be, or they can thumb their nose at it. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that your partner must obey what you say just because Jeremy says the cupboard shouldn't be open. That's not me ordering you and telling you, but because I've now explained why I feel and I know they should be closed, then, and that then takes your relationship to the next level, is that if he's going to just keep doing it, because here's the thing, right? So let me go back to that sock example. Hey, Charles, don't leave your socks on the floor. It's in the way. The dogs, one of the dogs likes playing with stuff. He's going to eat it, and that's not good, and that's dangerous, and it could kill the dog. Charles would be very, very ignorant or stupid if it doesn't enter his brain the next time that he's about to do it, right? Because if we had an impactful conversation, that's going to stick with him. So the next time that he's sitting on the couch or wherever he is, and he's taken off his sock and he's about to chuck it on the floor, I would expect a regular thinking adult to go and say, oh, that's right. Partner just said, don't do it. Dangerous for the dog. Could kill him. Not going to do it. Or, right, there's another option here. Or your partner's like, fuck it. He told me not to do it. I'm doing it because he said not to do it. Okay, well, that's fine. Now, if you're choosing to do that and have that attitude about things, when I've just told you that what you're doing can kill our dog, I'm going to look at that relationship and go, okay, this dude, nope, he's gone. Dog first, he's gone. So, so what's, your pet peeve about your husband? Well, we communicate so that there aren't things. Now, there may be some things in your relationship that you just sort of have to get over because, going back to that whole controlling thing, because if I did demand that he do this or not do this, then yeah, that's unreasonable. That's me having my way all the time, and I don't accept any other outcome. Well, that's a dictatorship, and if that's how your relationship works, then fine. But so to ask me, what's something that Charles does that just annoys the hell out of you? Well, nothing now, because we talk to each other about what we like and don't like. So we don't have that issue. But like I said at the very start of the segment, is I get that it's meant to be sort of a humorous kind of, they want me to say something embarrassing about my husband that he does and make him look, stupid or silly or absent-minded or whatever it is. But there are people who seriously, ask that question, and I just go and say, then I don't know that your relationship is, or either you don't have a good view of how relationships work, or you just haven't been in one that's got good communication, because we don't have situations like that. People ask us, our coffee team in West Hollywood sort of, envies our relationship and asks all these questions, and I just said, we just we don't fight about things, and it's because we set the expectations, or we laid that foundation at the very beginning of the relationship. Did we have blowouts where he was kicked out of the house twice and kicked out of the country basically? Yeah, but at the same time we both had to figure out what that meant for the other person, and what works and what doesn't work. So that's my rant about that. One more break, more relationship chatter on the Scribble right after this.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
JB here on The Scribble. Earlier I was talking about my grandparents and the arrangement that they had in their relationship, and how, they each had their own role, and, she would do this and he would do that, and that's just how it was. Nobody really questioned it because, again, it works for them. So, why would you try to make it an issue? Why would you call out something that's not a problem for them? And something that I've never understood in relationships is when people are my husband is a priority. That's fine. I've never been in the situation where I'm sitting and talking to somebody on the phone, and all of a sudden he starts calling me. I've never been that type of person of, oh my God, Charles is calling me, gotta go, I'll call you back. No, I was talking to you first. He can wait. I live with him. I see him all the time. It's not, whatever. And if, on the flip side, if Charles has a freak out because I didn't answer his call, and Well, I was talking to somebody. Maybe we were having an in-depth conversation. Maybe we actually were talking about relationships and me helping that person have a good relationship. So that's something that bothers me about, a phone call with me can last, let's be honest, a good hour, 2 hours. It's always driven me insane when I'll be talking to somebody, we're in good conversation, where, it doesn't show any signs of ending, and all of a sudden, Mike's home, I gotta go. And then you're practically hung up on just because the husband, came home from work. I don't know. I just think back to when I was growing up at home. My mom, she would get home from work first, and then my dad would come home. So same situation. I remember her still this is when you had the corded phone in the kitchen that had like the 40-foot cord. I just remember my mom still being on the phone, almost like ignoring my dad when he came home. She was talking to whoever she was talking to. Maybe it was a friend, maybe it was my grandma, maybe it was whoever. And she was still going through the kitchen, clotheslining you if you weren't paying attention because the phone cord was there. And my dad would come in, kind of give her a kiss in between her talking and listening. And that was that. I never, ever, ever did I ever hear my mom say, "Oh, gotta go, Barry's home, gotta go. No, she was like, "I'm talking to this person, so Barry can wait." And that's how, so I've never, sure, I've been on the phone with people, my husband's calling, I see it, I'm like, And you would think that a person would then be itching to just, okay, well, I'll give the person 5 more minutes and I'll wrap it up. I'll keep talking to you for another hour, I don't fucking care, we were having, he can wait. So I've never understood that. Letting me go because either the partner comes home or the partner is calling. It's just weird. Now, again, here's the thing. If that's how your relationship works and you need to drop everything just because the person is calling you, that's on you. That's on you. Just like I've heard, I didn't know about these apps where you can basically track your partner's phone. I didn't know that was a thing. And so people are sort of divided. Either you're for that, you're really, really for it, or you're totally against it. I've never been in that situation where my husband has suggested, let alone demanded, that I install an app on my phone so he can see where I am at all times. So you ask me, okay, so if Charles says that, I would say, one, why? Do you not trust me? Why all of a sudden after all these years do you want that? We've never had a situation where you haven't been able to find me or something has happened, so why now? And I would look suspiciously at that and go, okay, you don't trust me. We communicate all day, every day, right? You have to remember that we're also in business together, so we don't have the typical setup where we both leave the house in the morning and we don't see each other for 10 hours. We are together pretty much like all day, every day, and it's actually kind of nice to get away from each other after a while, but so when I hear about, my cousin who has on her phone, she's constantly looking to see where her husband is, I don't know if that's a comfort thing, if that's a control thing, if that's a trust thing. I just don't know. I really don't know. I've never felt the need to go and say, I'm not sure where Charles is, let me see where he is. Because I can text him and go, hey, where are you? Are you coming back? What are we doing something? Are we going for lunch? What do we do? Are we walking the dogs? What's happening? I would think that you just ask the person, where are you? I don't need somebody monitoring my phone, and that's bizarre to me. But if that's commonplace in today's relationships, good luck with making that work for you. It would not work for me, but good luck for you. I don't know. Now going back to my parents, I could almost see, again, they're in their 70s, they're not technologically inclined, but I could understand if my dad went and said to my mom, or my mom said to maybe my mom is more got the mouth on her, but if my dad said, put this on your phone, I want to, see where you're going, I could see my mom telling him, fuck right off. She wouldn't end the relationship, but it would just be like no. Here's what I'm going to do with your phone, buddy. I don't know. Is it offensive to me? They just asked me in my ear, is it offensive to me? No, but it would just be a deeper conversation about, why do you feel this need? Now, here's the thing. Let me flip this around. If I had health issues, right? Like I know my aunt used to have seizures. I don't know if she still does, but so I could understand something like that where, I haven't heard from her, whatever. Sure. In our relationship, we're two very healthy people. It's not a big issue. If we were, like I said, there's a thing called a text message that you would just send your partner and, what's up? Where are you? You coming back? You going to be late? But yeah, so I know that my dad, I was still living with them at the time. Was I? Yeah, I think I was. And I would sometimes, like if I was in the area of where he worked, I was taking the bus somewhere. So I would show up at his work, and my house is about not even a 5-minute drive from their house. So I would just show up at his work close to the end of the day, and he would drive me home. Whatever, right? He would call my mom almost like he had to check in because he would essentially be like 5 minutes late. Oh, Jeremy's here. I'm gonna drive Jeremy home, and then I'll be home. I'm sure, if I asked my mom, I'm sure she would go and say, I don't know why he does that. Whatever. Right? Do you need permission to say that you're driving your own child home? Right? I mean, whatever. My mom is not the type of person who's looking at the clock going, it's 4:17. You're usually home at 4:12. Where were you? Why are you 5 minutes late? You just didn't do that. It wasn't a big deal. Who cares? Who cares? I know that my husband does. He's a fitness model, and so at the gym, he's usually 2 hours. But I mean, if it's so he got talking with somebody, or he, stopped to get a smoothie on the way home, whatever. I'm not looking and going, he's 13 minutes later than he usually is. Oh, I better check his app. I better see where he is. Oh my God. I would never. So again, I'm not one to give advice about relationships or tell you how yours should run. I'm just telling you that would definitely not work for me. It wouldn't. One more break, and we'll wrap things up on the Scribble right after this. Oh, we don't have another break. Well, that was awkward. All right. Well, my name is Jeremy Bradley. This is the Scribble. We've already run overtime. That's what it is. I will talk to you same time, same place next week. Feel free to shoot me an email live at jbonair.com. Bye-bye for now.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at thescribbleshow. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some